Alright, and now I'd like to talk about the rest. For example, some of these cards that are in the blue deck work with the theme. Obviously, you have the commander himself. Works very well with the theme, but some things it's sort of like a card that works in any deck, but it doesn't change things that much. I mean, well, how to put it? Deep Sea Kraken is a 6/6 creature, can't be blocked. Suspend of 9 with 2 and 1 blue. Now, suspend, the way that works is you pay the 2 and 1 blue, or whatever the suspend cost is, and then you put that many counters on it. Every upkeep you remove a counter, or sometimes with an extra effect, it removes a counter. And this creature is unblockable. So, you pay 10 mana for 6/6 unblockable, and that kind of makes sense. The original unblockable creature was Phantom Warrior. It was a 3 mana cost 2/2 creature that was unblockable. And that was okay. This is 3 times as big, but the cost would have been 9 mana if you're putting that together. That would have been 6 blue and 3. They can't do that. But it has this added ability that whenever an opponent casts a spell, if it's suspended, you remove an extra time counter from it. So if you got this out early for the 2 and 1 blue, it kind of keeps everybody from wanting to play anything. Otherwise, you're waiting 9 turns to get it out. Now, I mean, it has its bonus sides. You're locking down your opponent a little bit. You're making sure they don't want to cast anything. Obviously, you can't affect it by casting your own spells, but it's still a fun card. Let's see, when the last one is removed, you cast it without paying its mana cost, and it has haste. So even if on the end of somebody else's turn, that could kill it. So I might cast a Wrath of God. This would trigger, and then this would get its counter taken off, come into play, and then the Wrath of God kills it. But that's only if that's the last counter that's removed. You give your opponent enough time to play with it. Obviously, like I was saying, 9 mana for 6/6 would have made sense, but 10 mana has this extra ability. You can get it out cheaper, keeps your opponent from wanting to play their spells, so it makes sense as a card. It's just an interesting thing. Then you have Breaching Leviathan. This is one of the new cards that they're trying to get rid of the exploitables from Commander by making sure it's cast from your hand and not just coming into play, in and out of play. They realize Deadeye Navigator is a powerful card, so they're making cards that don't use it. In this case, you have another card that's, for its Commander mana cost, really good power and toughness. 9 mana, 9/9. That's incredible. But if it enters the battlefield from your hand, in other words, you cast it, you tap all non-blue creatures and they don't untap. Now, something to keep in mind when you cast a card like this, the non-blue creatures that are getting tapped might be your morph creatures, because they're actually 2/2 colorless creatures. So that's something to keep in mind. And another thing is it's a temporary tap. It doesn't keep them locked down like the Kraken from Theros. It's a temporary thing. So you have to really think if that's going to make a difference. Then they look at things like Brine Elemental. Brine Elemental is a morph creature, 5/4 for 6, that's fine. But if you turn it face up, your opponents, or each opponent skips their next untap step. That's a lock, but only if you really time it out for them to skip their untap step. If your opponent skips their untap step, sometimes that's a time walk. So this is the kind of card that if everything falls into place, all the things, all the tumblers hit in just the right thing, you unlock victory with that. But it's 7 mana to do that. Plus it's 3 mana to morph it. So it's something to think about, because I don't know. I mean, 5/4, that's cool. 7 mana for the time walk, kind of cool, but it has to all work together that way. Of course, 3 mana to make it a 2/2, and you may never need to unmorph it. But it's the kind of card that you want to prepare for it. You want to make it worthwhile. I don't know. 6 for 5/4, eh. 3 for 2/2, eh. 7 for your opponent doesn't get to untap the next turn, maybe. I don't know, you have to plan around it. Not to say you can't, it's just that you really have to plan around it. Now, Sphinx of Dwar Isle. 6 mana, 5/5 flyer, Shroud. Now, Shroud means it can be the target of any spells or abilities, including your own. It's not like Hexproof. It's not like that fantastic card drawing creature that's 5/5 for 5. That's just hexproof. It's just really, really good card. But it's an okay thing. I mean, you get to look at the top card of your library at any time. So, you know, you are doing something out of it. Nobody can say otherwise. But I mean, Mahamoti Jin was 5/5 for 6. Sibilant Spirit was 6/5, or I'm sorry, was 5/6 for 6 flying, 5 and 1 blue. But your opponent drew a card whenever you attacked with it. So, you know, you have to think about it. I mean, if you look at these two cards side by side, you get a 5/5 for 5 hexproof, incredible. Lieutenant +2/+2, and whenever it's blocked, you draw 2 cards. 7/7 for 5 hexproof is amazing. Green doesn't even get it that good. That's incredible. So this, I mean, compare the two. Why would you play this? You'd rather have 2 of this thing or some other effect. So, like I said, this is part of the rest of the deck, so it doesn't really work. Getting to look at the top card of your library isn't as useful if you're going to use Teferi and say, well, I'm definitely putting that one that I just looked at on the bottom of the library. Whatever. If you're playing it out wrong, you get to look at the top card, and I'm going to be drawing that next turn, because Teferi's ability is a sorcery unless you get out the emblem. Then you get cards like Infinite Reflection. Now, Infinite Reflection enters the battlefield attached to a creature. Each other non-token creature you control becomes a copy of that creature. Non-token creatures you control enter the battlefield as a copy of enchanted creature. Where this is kind of interesting, you could put it on this, Breaching Leviathan, and all of your other creatures enter the battlefield as it, and since you cast them from your hand, they should technically tap out and not untap on the next untap step. Or if you put it on the Deep Sea Kraken, they're all 6/6 unblockable creatures. Or if you put it on the Brine Elemental, nothing happens because it's just a 5/4. Likewise with this, they're all 5/5 flyers that let you look at the same top card over and over again. But there were other cards we talked about that were pretty good. Like if you put it on your, 5/5 hexproof, that's fantastic. Because let them block. Draw all the cards you ever need. So this could work in a nice strategy. Could become a very powerful type of card. And let's talk about Stitcher. Geralf? Geralf sounds about right. 3/4 for 5. His ability is you mill the top 2 cards of every player's library. Then you exile 2 creature cards, and then you put an XX zombie where X is the total power of the combined cards. The problem with that is that you might accidentally exile your own 2 cards that are the only creatures, in which case you'd get a 14/14. That's kind of cool for only 3 mana, but this is the kind of card that once it gets out, you're the target. Your opponents are not going to tolerate you just being there at the table. They'll want to get rid of it because you're milling them. Those are cards they don't get to play. And you're getting a huge creature out of it by exiling the creatures, which are cards that they don't get to play. That's a strategy, of course. In one-on-one, out of those 6 cards, you might hit a bunch of lands and a bunch of spells, so it's harder to build a strategy around it. But it can work. But if I was taking this out to make a multiplayer deck, I'd actually take him out and make a one-on-one deck or a mean commander deck with that as the commander. So you have that option. Then let's talk about how you get copies. Crackling Counterpart copies a creature you control. It has flashback. The cool thing about it being a creature you control, you can, you get a cheaper version of the same card. It's as if you're getting to play more than one of a card. And because it has flashback, you can pay the 3 here and the 7 there. For 10 mana, you get 2 copies of target creature. Roughly 5 mana apiece. You can split it up like that. And that's pretty cool. Otherwise, if this gets countered or milled, it still works, so you're not losing it. Maybe that works with the Geralf strategy. Then there's this card. Those of you who've been keeping track of the Commander 2014 know what this does with Dualcaster Mage. There's just so many things that it can do. So, yeah. So you cast this and then Dualcaster Mage copy this, all 5 copies become more dual caster mages, which copy again, make more dual cast. Yeah, it's a mess. Obviously, that's kicker of 5 and 4 mana there. That's 9 mana to do it. Not saying you couldn't, just saying if you lose to that kind of thing, you have a great story out of it. But then if you lose to that kind of thing, you spent 9 mana doing it. I don't know. I like it though. I like this card a lot. It's it's a lot of fun. Copy your opponent's really cool creature. Copy their commander, although you can't activate the abilities unless it's like blue mana in there. But yeah, it's just a fun card. I really like it. And speaking of targets, Willbender. This is a card that's actually pretty old and they reprinted it for the set. I really like it. It's 2 mana, 1/2, but with a morph ability. 3 down to put it as a 2/2 creature. 1/1 blue to turn it face up. Suddenly, you can change the target of their time stretch. Now you're taking the extra 2 turns, or somebody wants to dump an infinite amount of mana into a Devil's Play. Hit you twice with something. You can say, well, you got me the first time, and then swing all the rest back at them. Single target, that's the only downside, is you can't get rid of an Arc Lightning or anything like that, or any 2 target creatures with the target players with the offerings from the set. So yeah, you get a lot of fun, really fun abilities out of this. It's a good card. This is, if I was going to change anything in the deck, I would actually keep this in it, because it just works very well. Plus, if somebody else does it to you, you can, in turn, swing yours around and Willbender it after theirs resolves, so it's going right back where it was. So you can Willbender after somebody else Willbenders. Something to keep in mind. Next, we have a colorless assortment of fun cards. Artisan of Kozilek works with that 1 card where you draw equal to the total casting cost of cards you control, of the highest casting cost. 9 mana, 10/9. When it comes into play, when you cast it, you can return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So for 9 mana, even if this is countered for any reason, you get to pull that creature back out because it's a cast effect. Has Annihilator 2, which in blue really helps you. Annihilator works for anybody. And it's an uncommon. Granted, 9 mana for 10/9. But as we've seen before, with Teferi, his -1 lets you untap up to 4 target permanents. So if you do play it, after you get Teferi out, the next turn you have 10 mana, so you can cast this pretty easy. At least 10 mana if you cast Teferi twice, it's even better. So if it boots, just regular. Every commander deck probably has one of those. I don't play it in my green deck, but then I have hexproof creatures. Anyway, Crown of Doom. Interesting card. I would like to play this with Kahiji, the green, white, and red one from the Commander 2013 deck, because it gives all creatures that attack opponents or planeswalkers opponents control get +2/+0. With this also in play, good lord, everything gets +4/+0 and you never get it back. That's just fantastic. I don't know why they put this in the blue deck, other than blue creatures kind of need the boost. Tormod's Crypt. Why? Nah, I'm just kidding. I know why it's in there. Because some decks have a lot of grave recursion, and this is more of a... should have been in a sideboard, but they don't really include sideboards in this type of thing. And then Assault Suit. So what you can do is, after you gain control of somebody else's creature, but you're going to give it back to them at the end of turn, stick this on it. And then just leave it on it. And this keeps them from... well, the other cool thing is if you gain control of somebody else's creature and then you put this on it, then you give it to whatever opponent you want to during their turn, because you still control the equipment and they can't pay to remove it off. So it gets +2/+2, haste, can't attack you or planeswalker you control, and it can't be sacrificed. So, it's just fun. You get a good way to deal with your opponent's creatures, that's for sure. Let's see if I can find that one card to show you how it works. Yeah, Domineering Will. You don't get haste out of it, but obviously that's an expensive effect. 3 and 1 blue here, 3 mana equip. That's 7 mana, but that's a nice way to make sure you never get attacked by a commander again, at least for the turn. Because then you also flip it over to any other opponent that you want. In a 5-player match, you just swing this over to player number 3, and then player number 3. You get that creature, it untaps, it has haste, it just can't attack you. It works. It's a fun little combo. I would say, well, we're going to, after this video, we're actually going to talk into how to modify this deck into making it into a different strategy. But that's just a fun little thing that you can do with these two cards. But yeah, that's every card that's in the deck. So after this, we're actually going to talk about how to modify the deck while keeping it under a certain amount for the total cost of the deck. Now this costs $35, and I'd like to say we get about a $15 spending limit. Keep it under $50 to build a different type of blue deck. So tune in for that video. Take care.